Hello, and thank you for joining us for the first in our IMarEST Explores series, Gender Diversity in the Marine Industry.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and a very happy International Women's Day. I'm absolutely delighted as a fellow of the IMarEST to be hosting this very first IMarEST Explores debate, and I have an absolutely brilliant set of panelists with me today. I have Arduni Mastura Bakar, the Corporate Environmental Manager at Bumi Armada. I have Captain Reshma Nilofa Naha, a marine pilot for the Calcutta Port Trust. I have Angela Gilliam, Deputy CEO for Maritime Industries Australia. Commander Cass Ryan, the Director of Training Authority Engineering for the Royal Australian Navy. And last but not least, I have Roxanne Leek, a Business Analyst at Fugro. We have a really fabulous set of panelists and some very tough questions for them to answer this morning. So I would like to start off by asking the first question. Oh, we have a dog in the room as well, which is excellent. So the first question I have, as a woman working in what's been a male-dominated sector for many years, what do you see as the main benefit to your company or sector that having a diverse workforce brings? And I'd first like to direct that question to Arduni, please.
Okay, hi Beth. Hi everybody. Thanks for your introductions. Okay, actually it's quite a challenging question to me, but to answer that, we find that more diverse team or diverse workplace tend to be more effective overall, when it comes to engagement and enablement. And with this diverse team and workplace, we also our team are more collaborative because by nature, we as a mother, we treat most of the colleagues like a family. So the reason why we can work as a team and support each other. And woman is also known as a creature who can always work behind the scene to support operation and complete most of the tasks given, as what Michelle Obama said, that there is no limit to what we as a woman can accomplish. I pass back to you, Beth.
Thank you, Arduni. And now, Reshma, you're a real kind of pioneering trailblazer. So what is your thoughts on this question?
Hi, Bev. Thank you for the introduction, and hello, everybody. So I think, women being 50% of the population, more or less, I think when women enter this sector or the organization, we were all this time losing out on 50% opinions, 50% perspectives. I think women bring that to the table. And I think it has been proven enough by various industrial standards and many results have come out in business reviews where diversity is not just for talking, but it's also a business case, and it improves investor returns and organizational effectiveness. To bring women to the table and to the positions, the leadership positions. So that's also something women bring. And specifically for me in India, I'm the first and only pilot here. So here, I have probably made a lot of women, the general public realize that this is also a career option. This is possible. Women can be on board. This was very, very farly unknown and unspoken about as a profession, and people did not have any knowledge about what a pilot does. I most often get this asked this question, whether which airline do I fly with? So I have to explain that this is what a maritime pilot does, and it is possible for women to be pilots, and there have been pilots who have retired and finished off their careers. So that for an Asian woman for this subcontinent, I am actually giving an option for girls to consider for a career option. That's another. And the last one would be that, once women, more and more women enter the industry, we also bring in regulatory and legal support for women in the organization, because it becomes a necessity, and the next woman does not have to face the same issues which we pioneers faced. So there's policies and regulations coming in place for enhanced acceptance and for non-discrimination, sexual harassment at workplace. These were policies which were never there. Can you imagine? And equal wages, these are policies which were never there because it was not a requirement when no woman had even tried it. So I think women bring a lot to an organization and to the sector in general. Back to you, Bev.
Wow, well, there you go. Captain Cass Ryan, my mistake earlier. Would you like something to add to that?
Yes, please, Bev. I think the thing that I have found most with diverse workplaces is the difference of thought. When you're trying to solve a very complicated engineering problem, which is all engineering problems, you find that we all come at it from a different angle, slightly from our own backgrounds. And if you add in 50% of the population is going to think in a different way to everybody else, we actually find the solution much faster by working as a group together. And I've often had, when we've been solving problems, people say, I never would have thought of it that way, because they get stuck into a different stereotype that way, and we come from a different angle all the time. So that's what a diverse workplace does, and that's why it's so important to have a diverse workplace. I'm now actually working in the training environment, and what I've found, which is even more mind-blowing, is that I have about 70 classes of technicians running at only one time, and the classes that have females in them, female participants, on average, everybody in the class does better in those classes than the classes that are only males in the classes. So not only do we bring diverse thought, we actually make the whole class do better as a whole. And invariably, the ladies in my classes tend to get ducks, or students of merit, meaning the most collaborative student within the group. So there may only be 2 or 3 of them in each class of 20 or so, but they still outshine. And then they also bring their whole collective along with them, which is building capability and more power to the Navy. So the more women that we can recruit into technical roles and engineering roles, the better off our whole Navy is going to be, because they'll have a better learning environment, even right at the start of their careers, let alone as they progress through into the ships. So that's why we should be here.
I think that's absolutely fascinating, Cass, and I think we've seen that in kind of education research, that girls typically, when they're younger, drag up the boys, and the boys achieve when they're working. And I think trying to get that throughout higher education and training is really important. I mean, why we think that doesn't happen when people reach 17, 18 is just beyond me, really. Well, we have an amazing set of role models here in front of us today, and we put a lot of emphasis on role models and mentoring as a means to kind of address gender equality issues. And I'd really be keen to hear your thoughts on what impact you think role models have, and what they might have had on your career. So if I could ask that to Angela first, please.
Thanks a lot for that, Bev. And I can't guarantee my dog won't feature again in the background, so I apologise for that. I think role models are very important. I kind of subscribe to that saying that you can't be what you can't see. So just having female role models as examples of things that you could do with your life is really important, particularly in male-dominated workforces. I also think having a mentor, and it doesn't need to be a formal mentoring relationship. I know there's lots of formal mentoring programs around, but it doesn't need to be a formal mentor. It's about knowing someone that you trust and respect. Even just to use as a sounding board can be a really, really useful guide to navigating through difficult decision points and uncertainty. And I've certainly relied upon some key people in my professional life to use in that respect. I've not participated in a formal mentoring program, but perhaps things might have gone differently had I have done so. So I'm not saying I wouldn't do that if I had my time again. But I'd also like to say on that I certainly don't see mentoring and role models as a means to solve the gender inequality issues. It's going to, I think what it does is assist women to navigate through a less than optimal environment. You know, if we had a more optimal environment to work within, you know, that requirement would become much less. And I think that the issues that lead to gender inequality are really, they're structural and they're cultural, and it's much bigger than just role models and mentors. Thanks.
Thank you. And Roxanne, would you like to add anything to that?
Role models are a key part, not only for our own development, but also in helping us to understand our strengths. They can be any people you meet along the way, or even from books that you find inspiring. You can learn how they do things and their approach to certain issues. Now, I've been with the IMarEST as a student member since 2008. And currently, I'm part of the board with the local joint branch since 2014. Aside to this, I'm also a career mentor to students in STEM that are in Singapore. So role models and mentors have played a significant role in my personal growth. I was able to get connected with many industry professionals in my younger years through various industry memberships. Interacting with these professionals gave me an insight to different career paths that I can take upon graduation. Some of these professionals have guided and mentored me through the years in various capacities. And to this day, I'm very grateful for their inspiration and their support through all these years in the industry. I believe that as a young professional, it would be beneficial to be paired up with a mentor. There are many struggles that each individual may face, such as issues of acceptance, issue of young appearance, issue of being inexperienced, issue of lack of a direction, and issues such as stress and workload. When guided by a mentor or a role model within the organization or external, these issues can be explored and tackled from a more senior perspective. However, these are generally not gender-specific issues. Having said that, I've come across students that feel more comfortable to share their gender-specific challenges with a female mentor instead. One may feel uncomfortable discussing some of these issues that are more private and confidential to the opposite gender. Gender-specific issues can come in various forms. Topics such as microaggressions or bias are usually easily missed, but this can cause emotional stress when piled over time. Over the other spectrum, where it should never have happened, are issues such as sexual harassments. This could be in any form of behaviors that make one feel uncomfortable or threatened and should be voiced out when encountered. I see role models and mentoring as a way to reduce these issues. However, it is up to companies to have policies to manage such diversity and inclusion challenges. So when the time is right, I feel that we should all choose to challenge the status quo. Thank you.
Brilliant. Inspirational words there. Thank you. So I'm going to ask the next question to the whole of my panel. So the COVID pandemic's highlighted in many countries the struggles faced by those who are juggling caring responsibilities for children and for others and work. And it's raised an inequality that can exist in some households where it comes to those home and caring duties. But it's also provided us some real insights on flexible working, remote working. Some of us have been working remotely for a very long time now. And I really like to learn from you what lessons we've learnt since the pandemic and how we might apply those going forward to kind of address some of these kind of gender issues. So I'm going to go round my table as my virtual table as I see it. So I'll start with Angela, if that's okay.
Oh, I'll just unmute myself. look, this is a big one for me. I have 3 small children, and at one point during the pandemic, I was a kinder teacher, a high school teacher, and a primary school teacher, holding down a full-time job, you know, trying to assist our members to move crew across domestic borders. It was really full on. So this has had a huge impact on my life, both positive. You know, it was a difficult time, but without a doubt, I think what the COVID, the pandemic has done is really brought to light the fact that people who work also have families, and there's work life and there's family life, and sometimes the two do sort of overlap, and they've certainly overlapped a lot in the last 12 months. And so in my organisation, we are choosing to continue to work from home, because we're actually an all-female team, and most of us, probably half of us actually, have small children, and it has been an absolute game changer from that perspective, being able to, or from a productivity perspective and a work-life balance perspective. There's certainly challenges, you know, sharing the load as a female, because you generally do, you know, that there's nothing like your mum helping you with stuff. And so, you know, while you're working full-time, you're also doing the caring and the teaching, and there's a certain element of patience that I think women have when trying to teach primary school children, certainly in my house. So yeah, it's been an absolute game changer, and I really hope that the positives that we've learnt from it really stick around, because I think there's been it's been a terrible time for many millions of people, but there's been some positives and some takeouts from it that I hope stick.
Thank you. And Cass, anything from you?
Yes, COVID has definitely changed our whole ship, because that would be much easier in some ways, because we just set sail, our ships all went to sea and got on with their task, and they didn't do port visits, which is very hard for our sailors and officers at sea to do that. So they went for 200 days away from Australia without actually setting foot on foreign soil, and then to come back, so that there was no risk from us to the countries we were visiting, or vice versa. So that makes a very long trip away for all of those people. But I'm working in the office space these days, and so I too became a primary school teacher. I only have 2 children that needed that help, but they were full on, and they both needed separate help. I couldn't teach them together. They were learning different things and still doing a full-time job. And my husband works in the oil and gas industry, and so the way that worked is he got stuck 6 months away from me, so the whole weight was on me, and also trying to run an organisation with 1,300 people relying on you to actually do your job. So what I found, though, was to actually admit that it was hard was really hard for me to do, because I like to actually always look like everything's really calm on the top. But to admit that it was hard was good for the rest of my team, so that they could then admit that it was hard. And so then we could actually have some really honest conversations about how to help each other through the childcare, child education and work fronts as we went through. And, you know, I had a lot of trainees that got locked into a very small base, that they were now sharing cabins with their very best mate that we assigned them at the beginning of the year, as opposed to people that they actually cared or loved, families. So they had a different challenge as well, that I was having to help them with their mental health. And all of that adds together and made me actually laugh at me before COVID, when I thought that I was struggling with a work-life balance. I was like, oh, that was a piece of cake, really, all of that work-life balance before. And I know that I still have had it much easier. Where I work is very close to where I live. And there's so many people that have struggled so much harder with everything. And yet I still, thank you, Zoom and all of those other great things that we're using. And I feel that we suddenly had, everybody was paying attention to it. And thinking differently. Before, you didn't count unless you actually went to Canberra and sat in front of the admirals yourself. Now everyone was just, oh, well, we're on teleconference or on video conference. And so instead of having to do crazy flights to manage childcare around work, I could just stay home and dial in, and it's been amazing. So I've had more connectivity, I believe, with the senior leadership of the Navy than ever before, even though I haven't been able to visit anybody in over a year. So it's just adjusting our thought plan. I'm hoping that part stays, a bit like Angela. I'm hoping the good bits stay, and the social connectivity that we're getting back now in Australia can continue to build and strengthen. But we can keep the good bits out of not having to travel all over the country to still see everybody. Thank you, Bev.
Thanks, Cass. I think you're right. I mean, I think we're all beautiful swans on the surface, and then we're all paddling frantically underneath, aren't we, to keep afloat. Reshma, would you like to add anything about COVID?
See, as a pilot, I still had to go and do the same duties as before. The pandemic did not change the way we worked on board. Ships still continued calling our ports, and we still continued to go out and work out there. So it was, one thing was that we were working in fear of getting ourselves infected and also people on board. At least we had help on a call's distance, but if we infected somebody else on board, they wouldn't have the medical benefits we have ashore. So that gives an added responsibility for us. So yeah, we were working in fear, but then I live by myself, and I consider it fortunate for me, because it would have been very difficult, like the other two moms spoke earlier. If I had kids and if I had to manage a kid, say all by myself at home, then it would have been really, really very difficult. And of course, if you had a little more support from the rest of the family, that would be an added advantage, definitely. But I managed myself pretty well. And I was actually surprised that I could do a lot more domestic duties than I would on a regular day. So I was surprised at myself too. But yeah, I managed it pretty well. So here I am looking the way I am. So I think it went fine. And it also gave me a new perspective that, it was not impossible for me. I could do this. I was cooking myself when I came back from work, which I thought, when we come back as, half zombies after a whole night at work, climbing ships and come back home, I thought it was impossible to do anything to feed yourself. But then I did it. So it's not impossible. That was a great realization for myself. And I think it would be for other women too. So yeah, fortunate and unfortunate things happen. And there are women who struggled. There were mums who were, struggling between work and home. But I think, like everybody else said, there are positives to be learned, which we all did. And I think I'll stick to that. I'm more self-reliant than ever before. That's a great thing.
Thank you. And you do never get lonely when you have small children with you, because they follow you everywhere. All the places you don't want them to follow you. Roxanne, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, so I personally do not have children. However, I empathize with those that have more responsibilities than I do. We have all experienced, whether male or female, during this COVID period, where all of us have been to video calls, and suddenly a child would come rushing into the call in the middle of your meeting, and you'll be so stressed out. Thankfully, I do not need to deal with childcare or elder care, but I do take care of household chores and had my share of my dogs coming to interrupt the video calls, suddenly barking and yapping away at his corner. Most of the times you have some deliveries coming in because of lockdown, so the only way to get groceries are through deliveries, and that's one of the trigger points for my dog. Perhaps as well, due to culture, personally, I was tasked to handle most of the household chores. So my Achilles heel is cooking, especially the preparation part. I'm very appreciative of my colleagues and stakeholders for their support during this challenging time in the pandemic. It is essential to show empathy during such a crisis. I felt that the shift to remote and flexible working have greatly improved the time management and deadlines that I need to achieve. Sometimes this means that you have to work a bit later than usual. But one of the biggest perks for remote working is the ease of video calls. In the past, we would always send emails to our overseas colleagues and would probably never have the chance to see them on video face to face. During this time, the distance between us seems to have faded. It felt a lot closer now to just pick up the call and discuss the issues. But the setback would be the lack of human interaction that we would typically see in the office space. The issues moving forward would be how we can progress with remote working while enabling the ability to establish connections that we would typically see in the office. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, Arduni.
Hi. Okay, as for me, at first it's a bit challenging, you know. I'm also have 4 kids, and I need to be a teacher, wake up early in the morning, prepare a breakfast and lunch. And I have kids from 17 years old, 16, 12, and 7, 8 years old now. And the most challenging part is to teach them a language because for us in Malaysia, English and Bahasa Malaysia or Malay language is very common, you know. But there's another foreign language that I need to teach my kid is Arabic. To be honest, I don't know how to speak Arab. So I need to Google, because when they ask me, just imagine the 11 years old kids and 7 years old ask me about Arabic. So it's really a challenge for me, you know. And in my opinion, with this with this COVID, it will encourage, we have more flexible working hours where we had a team from, as Rosie mentioned, from various parts of the world. So we can easily connect to them with all these video conferences and instead of sending email. So before this, actually, I have not seen a few of them, but now we can see face to face. Even Roxanne, I only know her from LinkedIn, and I can meet you now virtually. Okay, and but there is a positive side where I can manage my kids and all the household because of all this while. Wake up early in the morning. I send them to childcare at early 6:30 a.m. because we need to drive to office. You know, Kuala Lumpur, if you leave after 7 o'clock, there will be a massive traffic jam. So, and in that sense, I feel happier not to stuck in the traffic and save my time. So that will be the advantage of working from home because of this COVID pandemic. And at the same time, we can fully implement work-life balance where I have more time to do my routine workout because of one of the reasons why I try my best to do this workout. I love Zumba, you know, and skipping rope because of, I know work at home can cause mental health issue. So there are many email communication shared by our colleague about how to manage a mental health issue. So one of it is routine workout. So this is one of the benefits where we can lose weight. For example, I lose 2-3 kilos just doing my simple routine workout, and it's you know, of course, it's good for our health. So and I hope with this post-COVID, our company already started implement job rotation. So today I'm at Bumi Armada office in Kuala Lumpur. So when we have a job rotations, so at the same time I can still do my routine workout, minimize traffic jam, and be more effective and efficient doing my job. At the same time, I can manage my kids and doing all the household. Back to you, Beth.
Thank you. Wow. I mean, it's fascinating. You know, we're all over the world, but all facing very similar. I think it's been really leveling in terms of, you know, we've all had a kind of struggle that we've all dealt with, and you know, it's been really interesting. So a little bit back to the kind of more diversity. So this is a bit of a philosophical question, which I'd like to pose first to Angela and then to Cass, which is, how do you think your organisation or the sector would be different if we had a 50-50 gender split? And I know in lots of, I mean, Andrew, you said everyone in your company is woman, brilliant. But I think, you know, in a lot of the marine sector, you may have 50-50, you'll have 50-50 in HR and marketing, and, you know, the kind of those roles compared to the technical and engineering and those roles. So how do you think the sector or the company would look different if we had this ideal, you know, 50-50 balance?
Yeah, well, we are a female team, an all-female team. We're a very small team of, I think, 6 at the moment. So while we are all female, I don't think that's ideal. I think, you know, gender diversity goes both ways, and I think there would be, you know, our team would probably be enriched if we had more, you know, a more diverse sort of situation. But we're an industry association, so we provide services to the members and interact with government. So we're very outward looking, and most of the people that I deal with are men, and because I work in the technical environment safety space, so most of them are men. Most meetings that I run and meetings that I attend, I'm usually the only female. Often there'll be one other female, but, you know, more than likely I'll be the only female. And I think that while that is okay now, because I've been doing it for, you know, close to 20 years, it was certainly challenging in the beginning. And I think that, you know, there's a lot of research around the gender dynamics in those male-dominated situations, and women are more inclined to doubt their technical skills and doubt their abilities, and, you know, it's called imposter syndrome. You know, I don't really deserve to be here, where men are much more likely to be overly confident. And I think as a woman, it is harder to, especially a young woman, that's also really important. It's harder to guarantee a level of respect and feel as if you're valued by your peers if it's a male-dominated situation. So I think if it was more 50-50, the work environment would be it would be easier for young women to enter that work environment if the gender divide was much more balanced. I also agree that diversity is always good. It's from a very fundamental level. You access you have greater access to just the talent that's available within the workforce. Having said that, you know, men and women do often bring different things to the table. So a 50-50 split, I can't see how you would be anything but better off. So yeah, it's hard to predict precisely how things would look in a 50-50 scenario, but they're just some of my thoughts around what it could look like.
Thank you. And Cass, the same question to you, please.
I think a 50-50 split is something that we're all aiming towards, and people have asked that question a lot as to whether that's what we really want. Our ships at the moment run at about 20% to 25% of the crew is female. So we already are much better than what we've been for the years before. So that is a massive improvement. And I can only see benefit, again, as Angela said, on we're actually 50-50, how much that will actually grow for all of us, and we'll get the gains back. And having spoken about my classes, obviously 50-50 is going to actually improve the capability even further, and the education levels will come up higher. So we'll get better technicians out of my organisation as well, which has to be a benefit to everybody. And some of the problems I have with that, though, is that some we have in the very junior ranks, we actually have higher proportions. But then once they start to take career breaks for families, or they can't see going to sea with a family, things like that, we actually have a very significant drop off of women participating after a certain point. For my own career, I actually managed to have all my seagoing commitments out the way before I had children. You know, it was, my mother said, most planned babies ever, because I pushed it back to make sure that I could fit everything in. The way that we work now is much more flexible, and people have those career breaks are actually taken care of better when they come back in. We've actually just released a whole new guide to maternity leave and how to actually re-enter the workforce, because everyone helps you leave on maternity leave and no one helps you come back. And I remember when I came back, my children are only 14 months apart, so I really only came back once. And when I came back, I said, can you just give me a heads up what happened in the last 2 years? What am I behind on? And people said, oh, you'll sort it out. So straight away you have all of the extra lack of sleep because you've had your babies and you're up all night with them, and then you're trying to get back. So what I feel a 50-50 organisation will teach us going forward is what we're already starting to see at the 25 to 75% is that now, I think Rachel said that before, that we're actually getting the policies and procedures to actually care for that other 50% of the organisation, which actually then builds on momentum so more people can see how to do it. Because one of the things I have found with my female colleagues is we overplan everything in our personal life to then work out how it fits into our career life. And we don't just wing it. And we don't apply for jobs unless we know we have every qualification known. And we want to make sure that we are the best at whatever we do, because when we're sitting, especially in the technical era where we sit there in the meeting and we're the only female at that meeting, we're not going to let down womankind by not knowing what we're doing at that second. We put a whole heap more pressure on ourselves. So if we had 50% of the people at that meeting were women, straight away the conversation would flow very differently, and you would feel that you could speak up even if it was a half thought, as opposed to trying to fully form your thoughts and make sure that you're giving the best foot forward at all times. Because the thing that has annoyed me most as I've come through, and I've been in the Navy now 24 years, so it's so much better now, but back in the beginning, if a female made a mistake, it was across the whole of womankind was in trouble, and how could we ever let a whole ship be full of women? And, there's the whole classic of we put a whole heap of women, 100% crewed ship with women, then once a month they'd be horrendously bad, and then the other 3 weeks they'd just be so nice to everybody that they wouldn't be able to be a warship. And it's just not true on any scale. But I do think that would be too far the other way. We don't want the pendulum to go that way. 50-50 is ideal, because then we are getting that diversity. And then we have to go through, how do we build diversity of culture within that 50-50 gender diversity then, which is a whole more interesting part of the world that we should be talking about. But until we can nut out gender, at least, it's just such an obvious loss of 50% of the population isn't even at the table with us at this point. But yes, I'm very excited about that in the future, and I think we're building the right way towards it. And the leadership teams, especially in the Navy that I work in, is driving hard because they want that in the Navy going forward. And to the fact that they even paid off ships early that hadn't been retrofitted or told to be retrofitted to become gender neutral. So they paid them off because they didn't want to keep having these male dominated ships out there that were causing reputation issues for the Navy. Whereas the female ships, the ships that had females on them, the behaviour level and the reputation impact when we went and visited foreign ports was so much better for us as a Navy and as a nation, which is what we're all out there to do. Thank you, Bev.
Thank you. There's absolutely fascinating points there that I think maybe we'll get to explore at the end. I particularly, we know when we did some research a few years ago at the IMarEST that there were oil and gas companies that were using not having gender neutral facilities as a barrier to just stop women going, rather than making the change. They would just say, well, we don't have women's bathroom, so we just won't have any women, rather than saying let's put in a women's bathroom, which to me would seem the more obvious thing to do. And I also really liked your point. I mean, I don't know how, maybe we'll discuss in the questions, that often I find that as the only woman at meetings and things, you end up doing more work, more voluntary work, because you are the woman. So if anyone mentions a gender issue, people say, well, you're the woman in the room, you do it. So it's kind of like you end up picking up all this extra work on top of your normal work, because for being the only woman as well. So you end up doing a lot more voluntary work for being there. So maybe we'll discuss that.
Beth, can I add to that?
Please do.
I just have a little addition. Actually, it's something where it's a point where I do not agree with Captain Cass here, that, you know, you want 50-50 only. I want to quote this Justice Ruth Ginsburg. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I'm sorry. So she passed away recently, and, you know, she was quoted to have said that, you know, when they asked her, she was the first female Supreme Court justice. So when she was asked how many is enough women on the table, on your bench, so she said 11 out of 11 without batting her right eyelid, you know. And at the risk of sounding arrogant, I don't mind a majority of women too, because nobody questioned when there were 11 out of 11 judges, all men. So I think let's not put that upper limit of 50-50. Let's give them all an equal chance, and then whoever comes in, whoever makes it, they make it. And also, when there's so many women, there's also increased acceptance and appreciation, and the woman's voice is heard for once. You know, we're still by far the most unheard population. And when we are talking about gender diversity today, we have absolutely forgotten another group, which is the LGBT plus community. We are not talking about them at all. We women are so biased against them already that we're not bringing them up. So I would also like to mention that, you know, I want them also on the table and having their voices heard. That's it from me.
That's great. And then maybe that's the next topic for the next IMarEST Explores debate. We've put it on the table. So we've talked a lot about kind of things we can do, and I'm quite interested to explore kind of women's networks or equality networks of all kind. And I'm hoping some of you are involved, or if you're not, why not? So if I could ask Roxanne, if you've been involved in any kind of specifically gender networks or equality networks, and what value you see them to bring.
Personally, I'm keen to network with people from a diverse experience and background to expand my horizon and my perspective on personal life. This is especially true when I connect with people that are drastically different from my experience and background. These differences can be a huge contributing factor to create diverse and innovative solutions, both in educational institutions as well as in the workplace. Networking with influential and prominent as well as women from different backgrounds provides a powerful avenue and support system to discuss and have a dialogue on various issues in today's environment. I personally have been to a workplace support group where female staff come together and share their experiences and challenges in their respective roles. This dialogue is exclusively for women, and it creates a safe space to discuss workplace issues. It was my first time going to one nearly 10 years ago, and through it, I realized some of the problems that I personally faced should not have been a norm, and at that time, I should have probably voiced it up. I have also learned of struggles that my colleagues faced and how they overcome it. It was a valuable knowledge sharing session, especially for those who are very new to the workforce. Women's networking group can be great for personal growth, supporting system, as well as a great place to create diverse and innovative solutions. For us to really have a sustainable future, we need to have more innovative solutions, and that will require us all to be better. Diversity and equality are important ingredients to achieve this. Thank you.
Thank you. And Arduni, can I ask you the same question?
Okay, actually there are few values, we can see with effective women's networking, because of, in my opinion, we need to have more women's networking in marine and oil and gas industry, because of this oil and gas, you have onshore and offshore, but offshore, to be specific, and also marine related industry, we are known as a male dominated industry, where motivation and support from different level and experience or different background is very important, especially when, for example, like myself, we have to involve global operation from many parts of the world. And I may not understand the culture in UK, for example. So with a women's network, I can ask Bev, can you share experience, well, what would be the culture, the best approach that I can adapt, when I have to work offshore within UK water. And same goes to sharing experience and reference, for example, we women in ASEAN country, maybe our technology not as advanced as you. For example, we have you are more advanced technology in renewable energy, offshore wind. So for us, I can see still at infancy stage, where this sharing experience and reference is very important. Same goes, for example, in marine environment, we have regulation, MARPOL regulations, and regulation from different parts of the world is slightly different. For example, a marine service operator or FPSO operator from Malaysia, we may not understand very well what are the requirements within a mission control area, within North Sea. So with this women's network, actually, we can enhance our knowledge. Just for example, although we are quite close to Australia, but the legislative framework, the expectation and requirement is totally different. So in my opinion, if let's say we have more effective women's networking like this, it will be very, very helpful, because of, for example, like us, we know it's not that easy sometimes, especially during this post-COVID, for us to work offshore. But if cannot go offshore, to be honest with you, I haven't been to our onboard Armada Kraken, Bumi Armada. So if let's say I have to go there, I can ask, well, what is the weather? What is the Met-Ocean data? There. So so it's very important for us,
Thank you. That's a really interesting point, Arduni, that I think, we often think that kind of women's networks are just for discussing gender issues, but I think there's a huge value in our sharing our technical knowledge, in a kind of a friendly group, and, not being mansplained to, as they say, on the answer, to give each other a kind of fair answer. And I think that's a really good, a point I hadn't really thought about. And Reshma has very kindly on our private chat been sharing some organizations. So Reshma, I don't know if you wanted to add to this discussion.
Yeah, I have really benefited being part of some all-women associations, one of them being around the world. It's called the WISTA, the Women's International Shipping and Trading Associations. I think they are present in over 40 countries. I think all of you can, give it a look, can maybe perhaps look it up online. And there's another specifically for seafarers, which is the International Women Seafarers Foundation, which originated from India and is up and running across a few countries right now, and we're trying to expand further. I've been part of both the associations and have really benefited hearing stories, being mentored, and also have been a mentor for other women who are trying to be part of the industry and, facing a little hurdles here and there. And when there are people who have gone through that before, we can ensure that, they don't go through the same thing again. so we don't repeat the part of the history which we don't want to have repeated. So these are associations really who have been of great help. And for people and listeners in the USA, Women Offshore is, although the name goes by Women Offshore, we also have Women Ashore, Onshore, and Offshore, and Women at Sea. So they have excellent mentorship programs which are free of cost, and we have some excellent mentors lined up there. And this is formal mentoring I'm talking about, which can help a lot of women out there. So there are these associations for people to benefit from, and I think they are doing a great job so far.
Thank you. I joined WISTA last week, so very pleased to hear that. We're getting loads of questions through on the Slido, so rather than hogging the debate, I'll start raising some of those. So I don't know if you just fancy answering the question, just unmute and I'll give you a piece. So I'm going to ask, this is a really good question, and every time I discuss diversity with people, there's always going to be someone that says it's a non-issue. I don't even know, if women don't want to join the industry, don't force them to join the industry. So this kind of comes up a lot. So the question here is, there are those in our industry who thinks diversity is a non-issue. How do we bring those reluctant people into the conversation?
We ask them if they'd let their daughter join. And then we see how they would actually feel about putting their daughter through some of the things that some of us have experienced, and have that conversation with them. And we shouldn't have to do it that way, but it is a very fast way sometimes to get people to think differently, or their sister or their mother. Would you want, if you think it's not an issue, would you want to have it this way? And you have that conversation with them.
I think the figures will speak for us. When it comes to women seafarers, I speak for the women seafarers specifically here, and we women seafarers only form a 2% of the world seafaring population. That figure, I think, will teach them that, that's enough to explain why diversity and inclusion is a topic to be discussed and addressed. Out of the 2% also, a majority of the 2% is from the hospitality industry on cruise ships. So we actually make up a very small fractional percentage. So I think it is good enough to, it's a bad enough figure to, and a very embarrassing figure to start with. So I think we can tell them the figures.
Thank you. And the next question, I think this is one, Angela, I think you're passionate about, is that someone has said that it's difficult to find enough women candidates for engineering and technical roles when recruiting. How can we reach out to more female candidates? And I think this goes as far as, how do we encourage younger people to get into those kind of STEM roles, that we can then get them from those STEM roles into these technical engineering posts?
Well, I guess this really goes to those sort of mentoring and role model type figures. If you can't see it, you can't be it. I also think, and I guess this goes to the previous question as well. We haven't really talked about, some of these gender issues are quite subtle. And it's quite difficult sometimes to put your finger on it, precisely what's happening when there's some gender dynamics going on. So I think we need to sort of air the dirty laundry in a way. And so if people are thinking about a career in STEM, or but they're a bit concerned about being the only sort of female in a workforce, let's talk about what's going on, and let's talk about those dynamics that are occurring, and equip young people with the confidence to call out bad behavior and you know, the confidence to sort of to stand by their own technical skills, particularly for females. Yeah, but it is certainly a challenge, I think, because I mean, only just very recently at my child's school, this is a terrible example, but one of the other mothers was telling me she was having an interview with her daughter's teacher who was in my son's class, and the teacher said, oh, she's really struggling in maths, but that's okay because girls aren't very good at maths. And I nearly fell to the floor. You know, this was 2 years ago. Why are we still having, why are these myths continuing to be, you know, why are they even part of the conversation? And so there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of work to do at the fundamentals with teachers who are teaching our girls and building their confidence in the maths and the sciences, and that there is no difference between boys and girls' ability to you know, take on some of these really exciting careers.
Yeah, I think that's really, and you know, my son came home from school one day and they'd been doing art, and the girls had drawn a ballet dancer and the boys had drawn a footballer. And you know, I was exasperated and wrote a strongly worded email. But you know, I think you're right. They are still, those kind of myths still run through society. And you know, I think even as parents, sometimes we're pretty bad at.
Angela, I had a perfect score in math. I think you need to tell your teacher that I was not the only one who had a perfect score. Only woman who had a perfect score.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic to hear. And I might add, in other respects, this teacher was a great teacher, and he had a terrific relationship with the children, which is another really key aspect to teaching. So, you know, it was just, that's probably why I was so shocked that he had said that, because, you know, it just goes to show even the really good ones have these, you know, it's a strong cultural issue, I think. But well done on your maths score. I certainly didn't do that well.
So this is a personal question from me, really, but it comes onto a little bit following up from the discussion. I actually spoke to a girls' school last week that's being live streamed, beamed to 2,500 school children in my area about this issue. And one of the questions I asked them was about gender neutral language, and largely because the manned and unmanned debate, Cass might be up to speed on this. The manned and unmanned debate is kind of raising its head in the regulatory field versus should we be using those terms anymore? Are they gender neutral enough, and do they discourage women? So I'd like your opinions on those. But one of the interesting, I asked these young ladies that question: do you think they're not gender neutral terms? Are they sexist? And they said yes, they think they're sexist terms. But then they said something quite telling. One of them said, but I'd never raise that issue because I'd be worried people would think I was being silly. And then one of them said, I wouldn't raise it because my friends would then tell me I was a feminist, and that's a really negative thing to be now. So these are like 16, 17-year-old, very intelligent girls. And I thought, how sad that they're already in that point there. They don't want to be seen as being a feminist, and they feel they'll be silly if they raise these issues. But I feel the kind of saying this, the imposter syndrome. Sometimes I think, well, you know, I think these are a bit sexist terms, but I don't want to raise them because people say, oh, you're being silly, don't be silly. So I don't know if anyone wants to kind of, Cass, if you'd like to comment on that one.
Yes, sorry, Bev. I just had a very interesting moment last year where I got to speak to all of the brand new sailors, all the female sailors. There was an opportunity where I needed to talk to them. And I said to them, who here recognises themselves as a feminist? And 5 hands went up out of the 150 sailors I was talking to. And I said, okay, so who can tell me what a feminist is? And one of those 5 hands said equality, politically, socially, and economic equality for all. And then I said, okay, so now knowing that feminist just means everyone is equal, who now is a feminist? And they all raised their hands. And I was like, it's something so fundamental that people have lost their way on and made a derogatory term when all it ever was we wanted to have equality for all and everyone to have that chance to do whatever they wanted out of their careers. So I think that it's beholden on us as the next lot of people to go through, because when I first joined the workforce, I thought, because I never had any reasons not to become an engineer. I was from a very small school, so even though there was only a few girls, there was only a few boys doing all the things that I did. And yes, I started to question when I got to university and I was the only female in mechanical engineering out of 150. Then I started to think that maybe this was something unusual. But when I still thought no one stopped me. I just carried on and I could do whatever I liked. So, you know, the war was won. Feminists, there was no need because we were all equal. And then I found all of these different barriers as I've gone through my career, and the way that we're treated when we first join an organisation is always lesser than the way that our male colleagues are treated when they first join. You know, there's a whole presumption of waiting to see whether we actually know what we're doing or we just got the job to make up a diversity tick. And that really became to grate on your nerves. And then, of course, I had a daughter, and I don't want her to have to start in the workforce under the same terms. So I was like, I actually have to pick up the banner and be a much louder feminist than I ever was before. But I have to have those conversations with those teenagers because they don't see themselves as feminists, and yet they want all the things that feminists have always wanted. They just presume that it's theirs, which is awesome in one front. But we need to make sure that they fight for it and don't just give up when they're told, because a lot of my female technicians, and it breaks my heart, they have joined and they're doing so well. Like I said, they're going to be Duxers or students of merit in all of their trade courses, and their relatives have tried to talk them out of it incessantly. And the reason that they are so good at what they do is they've already overcome so much to even be at my school, because so many people have told them you shouldn't be a technician, you shouldn't be a tradesperson, you shouldn't go to sea and be in the engine spaces, you should be back up doing something much more female. And so this is their own relatives who are extraordinarily proud of these ladies, but then wanted to steer them in a different direction so that their life wasn't so hard. And so that's why they're so good at their job when they get to me, because they've already overcome so much to get here. So how many did I lose that couldn't face the third uncle in a row telling them that they couldn't do it, or the grandfather saying don't do it, or even the parents saying that to them? So we need to make sure we get out there to the school groups and we're already changing the mindset, and a bit like Angela said a few times, so that they can see us, then they can be it too, you know. And that's so important. But it is very much, feminist is not looked at kindly at the moment, and we need to change that as well.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to come in on that point? I've got other questions. So this comes from Anonymous. I started at sea 30 years ago and spoke to a young female officer of the watch, and she was experiencing the same challenges that we did. What can we do to affect change? So, you know, 30 years ago, we've still got the same issues today. What can we actually do to make a change? It's a tough question, that one.
Can I try? Okay. Hi, Beth. I think, 30 years ago, I think in my opinion, if what we can do is we have to encourage, you know, more women in, especially, I give example in offshore, in oil and gas industry. Just now we mentioned about the, what you call it, it's not easy for you to get what you call it, woman engineer. But honestly, from my observation in Bumi Armada, for example, you can see many engineers and technical at executive and middle management level. So from our experience, we are still considered as a developing nation. Actually, we are forced to study science. I myself, I thought I can be a lawyer, you know, but I was forced to study science during my secondary school, you know. So I think many of my Malaysian friends also have the same experience with me. I mean, that is, it's a bit harsh, you know, forcing people to study science. And another one is promotion. You know, we have to try promotion. I know that there's a lot of promotion within the professional institute in UK, in Europe, but in this part of the world, we have to professional like us, especially in the industry, we need to reach the primary school children, secondary, to promote these what you call it, professional in marine and offshore industry. Because of when honestly, as an environmental professional, when I shared with my friends, when they asked me, what are you doing? I said, yeah, I'm an environmental professional in marine and oil and gas. But for them, it sounds a bit alien, the position and the scope, compared to being a doctor and accountant. So I think promotions we have to reach people out there from a primary school, secondary school, and we need to give more talk about it, and we have to expose the other sides of being a professional in science and engineering. Because last time, I think you also aware that I myself, as a science student, I was not to say label. People thought that we are kind of scholarly, bookworm. We have to study, read a book, no life at all. But now it's a different. Although you can, although engineering and science subject is not that easy. I mean, although not that tough, but actually you can still learn it, and no need for you to really focus on it. I mean, you have to study, but at the same time, you still have life. You can do other things, So that is the few things that we can do to promote and change the mentality.
Thank you. Reshma?
Yeah, I think a major problem which we face is biases, whether conscious or unconscious bias. So I think as organizations, you could encourage men and women to take up, because we women do not realize most of the time that even we have a lot of biases, usually unconscious. So I think as employers, our maritime firms, the shipping companies and other maritime industry firms can take up courses for men and women, the employees, to take up, to get rid of their biases, maybe identify and work on their biases, whether conscious or unconscious. Answering another previous question also, that, when we advertise that the workplace is a gender neutral workplace, Harvard Business Review had I just remembered, Harvard Business Review had a survey report where it said that applications, the number of applicants applying for a job position doubled, if not more, when they mentioned it and advertised that they had a gender neutral workplace. I think you could get more candidates out there who are having a bit of, questioning themselves, maybe, whether they would apply or not. So somebody wanted more women in the engineering roles. I think they would also benefit from this. And also to achieve that, these courses could help.
Thank you. So I'm going to combine two questions together now, because I think they are related. One of them is a comment that there's a lot of panels that are talk and not much action. So maybe that's what we are today, a talk and not much action. But the link question is what do you think institutes such as the IMarEST could do to help promote and improve diversity? So I think this is that kind of question. We can have these discussions, and we have these discussions a lot, but are there tangible things that the IMarEST should be doing? Should the IMarEST be making all members do unconscious bias training and providing that unconscious bias training for members? There's one thought. Guidance on gender neutral workplaces. These are all things that the Institute could explore doing. I'm going to put Cass on the spot here as a member of IMarEST Council, and then I'll ask for your opinions as members as to what the IMarEST could be doing.
Well, for starters, we need more women on the council. When I said I was kind of interested in it, people kind of leapt at me, and I thought that was kind of weird. And then I went to my first council meeting, and I went, oh, I get it. And we need more of us on there so that we can actually have a voice at the table, because and obviously that all got a bit more complicated with COVID restrictions and happening right as I was about to go to my very first international visit on the council. But all up, we need more women to represent, and we need more women to get out there. We need IMarEST to actually sponsor those kind of gender. This is a great start, this facing gender diversity in the marine industry. This is a great way to start it. But I know there's also women's interest groups within IMarEST, but we need to have events that are actually building that pull through of women that want to come into this industry with us, so they can meet us, they can talk to us, they can see what challenges we had. And we need to hold that all over the world so that we can support each other, because every region has different challenges that people have to overcome as they're coming through. So that's my idea of what we could do for get more representation and do more things. Actually get out there and...
Thank you. And we have, as members, a good opportunity with the IMarEST AGM this week to raise that question. So I think we should. Reshma, please.
I have a suggestion. We've had this in the other networks before. This is a suggestion. You could have a database of interested candidates who are looking for positions, and you could have the employers come to you for candidates who are women. You could have a women employment drive or something like that. It helps. A lot of women are out there who are with merit but looking for opportunities. I think you could be a platform.
Thank you. And Roxanne, anything? I mean, I know you're involved in the branch. Is there anything more specific that the Institute could be doing to support you as specifically through kind of gender and those issues?
I guess I agree with more of the awareness and campaigns, I think, basically to first objectives to, identify certain issues that are deep-rooted in our industry. But I think as well, some of these issues are probably already being broadcasted in different forms. But the awareness, of course, can always be talked more and exposed more as well. Other things that I think as our organization can do, and is probably already doing to a certain degree, could be a lot more on the role models and the mentoring aspects of things. So this could actually be something that is good. And again, I'm kind of an advocate for role models and mentoring, because it's also good to for people who are just starting out in their career and young and stuff like that. It's good to have someone from a different perspective, not exactly within their own country or someone somewhere else. And you realize that, hey, our way of thinking in locally, for example, where I am right now in Singapore, could have a total different mindset of view from someone in Australia, someone from US, someone from UK. I have personally kind of expanded my horizon when I went over to the UK for my further studies. So certain issues and topics that I initially thought was very local, like, oh, I'm a Chinese, I'm in Southeast Asia, so therefore this is my culture. That kind of set norm of thinking. Kind of like when I went overseas to the UK, it actually changed my views a lot. So this could be something that could be beneficial. And IMarEST is a very big international organization, has a big outreach to everyone around the world. So I just thought of it like, it could be something that might be beneficial for the younger people who are interested into coming into this career. But I also personally think that there are a lot of women students out there who are very interested in being involved in careers that innovate, probably, and you kind of, being in the engineering line, you want to create things and make things happen, right? That looking back, that was what inspired me to come into this industry in the first place, because I myself wanted to be involved in big projects, and basically to create something, right? So there will be students that are probably interested in this, and probably what they lack is like, how do I make it to there? Or how do I make it to like one of you guys, your careers that you are right now today, right? So it's like probably like connecting the A to the B, So this is how I see how some of the things we go about through role model and mentoring, probably helping maybe not just women students, but all the students around, connecting the A to Bs. Yeah.
Thank you, Roxanne. And this is a question, really, I think, Arduni, for you also, and it's come up also on the Slido, is that, in Europe particularly, the gender conversation is really skewed towards equal pay and maternity rights, and that's and kind of trying to get women at board level. They're the kind of discussions that we have on a kind of European level. And you're right. I mean, there may be a very Western approach and a very kind of Eastern approach. And I wondered if Arduni, if you had any comments on how it might be different and whether we are facing different issues.
Yes, actually, culture could affect the implementation on gender diversity and equality. We can see more proactive approach of this implementation in Western nation, because if you look at the data published by Bloomberg's 2021 Gender Equality Index, which recognize public listed companies for demonstrating transparency to gender-related practices and policies. For example, I just give example in particular for Malaysia, only 3 Malaysian companies are included into the list. And these 3 companies are all from telecommunication, banking, and Bursa Malaysia. So, because in this index, 2 out of 5 pillars focusing on women, such as female leadership and talent pipeline and pro-woman brand. So I just give another examples for representatives, diversity and inclusion top 100 2020, where there's only 3 Malaysian companies also are in the list, and not from marine industry, but they are from telecommunication services, natural gas utilities, is a Petronas gas, and food and tobacco industry. So if we look at the implementation of this gender diversity and equality in this part of the world, especially in Malaysia, we see a lot of women at a higher position at the telecommunication, banking, and financial sector. So a lot of improvement is happening in this sector, where more women are entering those sectors in large numbers, and they are holding, as I mentioned just now, a senior management positions. For example, we had a female central bank governor for so many years, So this is what's happening in our country. So the situation is slightly different in marine and oil and gas. The implementation is slightly different, where you can see many engineers in executive and mid-management position, but not as a senior management position in operation and technical. So for us, the implementation, there's still a long way for us to close the gaps compared to the Western nations. And we hope to see more commitment from the industry leaders, because we know, although I myself, there's a limitation being a mother to be offshore-based worker, but we can be the leader in engineering, project management, and operation that support overall offshore operations. So I can see there is an implementation from the analysis. Even if you go into this, the Bloomberg Gender Equality Index and this representative diversity, you can see more of the top 50 are from Western countries.
Thank you. That's something to look up. Oh, Reshma, please go ahead.
Again, thanks Arduni for bringing that up, because as a fellow Asian, Bev and the others, we are far away from, the Western countries. But I can tell you one thing, that when women are given the much coveted leadership roles, the peppered few women who are being given those roles, they make a huge difference for so many other women. The Shipping Corporation of India, which is the government shipping company, had for the first time, it had a female CMD. The managing director right now is a woman, Miss H.K. Joshi. And ever since she came, she's been such a big voice for all of us women. And just 2 days before, I need to show this off really. I have no other way to show this off, but let me just show you. She just flagged off an all women crew. I don't know if you can see that. We flagged off MT Suvarna Krishna, which is a state-owned vessel, tanker to be specific, and it has all women officers on board, all Indian women officers, and she was flagged off on the 6th of March. So now you know that, what a huge impact, what history has been made. This has never happened in the world history, where women officers belonging to one nation have filled up all the positions of the officers of a ship, and they've set sail. This has never happened in the cargo vessels, and it's a historical moment for us, and it's going to be etched in our minds, going to change the game for a lot of us. So, yes, we are far behind in Asia, but then we are all looking for those places where women can sit and make a difference. It makes a huge impact, when one woman can change the game so much. Just imagine if we had that 50-50, which you all want. I don't want that. I want more.
Thank you. And I think it'd be amazing the day we don't have to celebrate a whole female crew. It's just normal. So we're running very close towards the end of time. So I'd like to just give you all a final opportunity to just give the viewers and the world a message for International Women's Day. So the one thing you'd like people to take home from today. And again, I'll go around my screen. So Angela, over to you.
Thanks, Bev. And it's been wonderful to be a part of this. So thank you to IMarEST for inviting me on. I think the one thing I would like to say is that if we truly believe that there's benefits to be had from gender diversity, then it's not just a female problem, it's everyone's problem. And I would really like to see more men be involved discussing these issues and providing their insights as well into how to deal with how to increase gender diversity.
Thank you. Cass?
The best way to fix gender diversity issues is actually to fix diversity issues full stop, and actually look after everybody and treat everybody with kindness that we want, and to actually build that resilience into everyone having the right work-life balance and being able to be a home carer, whether you're a male or a female or a career person, vice versa. And it is very exciting when we have firsts, but we should always be aiming for the 100th woman or women crew or the 1,000th or women's crew. And that's where our goal line needs to be. And the way that we can get there is not to lose hope and to actually celebrate how far we've come, because having been a Navy officer for 24 years now, I can tell you we've come a very, very long way. And sometimes we have to stop and celebrate the fact of where we are, and then reach back down and bring forward those women that are coming through behind us as the women that we were pulled through by before us. And male champions is the people that will help us get there as well, because just through sheer weight of numbers in the marine industry, we need to actually celebrate those men who actually champion our efforts for gender diversity, because without them, we wouldn't be here. And more importantly, we won't get anywhere going forward. With the numbers that we have at the moment, the male champions that we have helping us are absolutely important for us to go forward as a team and get true gender diversity. Thank you.
Thank you. Roxanne?
I think as the challenges we will face in the future will be similar probably to what all of us here have been through. The world that we live in right now is changing a lot faster than before, driven more by population growth, innovations, and climate change as well. More companies are forging towards digitalization and remote working, as well as flexible working hours. This will in turn become more acceptable in workplace, allowing more career choice for different career options and needs. This new norm of a digital savvy era will seek to boost optimization and productivity across all roles, and it will equalize opportunities for everyone. we will have to be ready to adapt and change. And maybe having a bit of thick skin, perseverance, and a bit of reminder on why we choose this field would probably help us to forge a path into a more innovative and sustainable future for everyone.
Brilliant. Thank you. Reshma?
I think for women, even the sky is not the limit anymore. There are women who are preparing to go to the Mars. I think if nobody can do it, we can do it. If I can do it, if we all can do it. So I think we need to get rid of our imposter syndrome some way or the other and stop questioning ourselves and try it. And only if we try, we will know what we can and what we cannot. So only if we try. So let's try and inch forward, because the fruit of hard work is often very sweet and very addictive too. Success is very addictive. So I think we can keep inching forward.
Thank you. And Arduni.
As I mentioned earlier, Michelle Obama said that there's no limit to what we as a woman can accomplish, and align with our the tagline of this year Women's Day, choose to challenge. So I would like to encourage more women engineers, the young engineers, to join working with offshore oil and gas. So now we are talking about renewable energy. We need more manpower who had passion in this area, focused, structured, and determined. And another one, not that calculative, as Beth mentioned, that you always asked to do all the voluntary work, means that we work beyond our roles and responsibility. So I hope that we can, all women, especially in a technical area, in this technical and science, can raise, and we have to push, to accept the challenge. Although we know this is a male-dominated industry. If I can, you can. So all of us can raise in this industry, And with this post-COVID, we can see that we can work effectively. Although we are a mother, we have to manage our kids. We can still work effectively as a woman in marine and oil and gas industry. So I hope that we can see more participation, joining IMarEST as a member, as an athlete, to support the women's networking, particularly in a marine and technical.
Thank you. So it's over to me to just really thank you for my absolutely brilliant panel. It has been fascinating. I've learned a lot and I'm inspired. So I wish you all a very, very happy International Women's Day. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you all and to everyone watching. And I believe there is an opportunity for some networking afterwards that should hopefully just pop up on the screen. Here we go. Yes, so if you would like to carry on the discussion informally, please just follow the link there, imarest.org/meet now with the password webinar, and we can carry on the discussion informally. But thank you very, very much, and I hope to see you all again very soon. Bye.